Good evening, Canterbury. Welcome to NewsMakers, where we debate the issues of the week, and it's a pleasure to introduce our power-packed panel. Yes, it's Learned Friends time, ladies and gentlemen. Joining us, Duncan Cotterill legal partner Garth Gallaway, Taylor Shaw lawyer Kathryn Dalziel, and law teacher, and basically the Boston legal superstar of Port Levy, David Round. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Mike. All the way.
It's being billed as a once-in-a-generation opportunity to recraft our liquor laws. The Law Commission has released its wish list of proposals. These will be open for public submissions. Of course, the key proposals include cutting bar and off-licence hours and also raising the off-licence purchase age to 20. What wets your whistle from Sir Geoffrey Palmer's palate, Garth?
I think we've got it all wrong at the moment, and I think we're in a society that has been allowed to denigrate in many respects in terms of how we're drinking. You only have to walk along the strip late at night. It's a threatening, heaving, unpleasant mess, really, and what wets my whistle is a good Chardonnay and getting people home at a reasonable hour. I think the time has come that we do have to look at it. We do have to have the bars not open just because people say they should be open. We have a society that's ridden with violence late at night, wanton crime and so on. I'm all for it.
The Hospitality Association's Bruce Robertson, I heard him say, look, in terms of 24-hour licensing, take this weekend, we've got a Springbok All Black test, 3 a.m. in the morning. There will be thousands and thousands of New Zealanders who will be relying on those bars to be open to see the game live. Is that a legitimate argument?
I don't know, actually. I do remember a friend of mine who was a journalist on the West Coast watching a game of rugby between New Zealand, I think, and France at about 3 o'clock in the morning, and he went out at that time because New Zealand lost and couldn't find a bar open on the West Coast, and he was going to write to the Minister of Internal Affairs about that because he just thought that was outrageous. In terms of the report, I think that what excites me is, first of all, I read it last night over a glass of wine, which was nice. Secondly, I'm very excited that Sir Geoffrey Palmer used the word wowserise. That's, I think, a stunning thing from him. This is the man who said in his maiden speech, most of Christchurch is low-lying and drainage is essential. He's got to wowserising in his vernacular, which I think is outstanding. But thirdly, we need to do something. These kids are preloading before they go into town, and they're causing the police a nightmare, and these alcopops have got to be addressed. So I think the Law Commission's had a good go at this.
What do you think the focus is, or should be?
I remember many years ago, Canon Hopkins, Jim Hopkins' father, arguing that we had big problems with alcohol and we wouldn't be solving them until it was really, really freely available, and we learnt thereby to behave properly. But I think he was wrong. I think we now have to accept it's quite clear that simply making things more available doesn't of itself teach us responsibility, and that the Law Commission is right. We do have to have... You're right there, Mike.
I'm fine.
Good. Yes, no, you just look a bit disapproving. But the...
No, it wasn't, David.
Oh, I'm sorry,
don't be so sensitive.
Oh, sorry. Right. No, I think the time is now right for a fundamental change. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, I think most decent citizens, all decent citizens, should be tucked up at home in their beds. And it's absurd to suggest that alcohol should be available anywhere at 3 o'clock in the morning. Too bad.
All right. What about the other key argument from the Hospitality Association that the real problem, and you referred to this with regard to preloading, is the great gush of off-licences and the inappropriate forms of off-licences, namely, your 24-hour convenience stores. Is that where the focus needs to lie?
Absolutely. The Sale of Liquor Act, one of the recommendations by the Law Commission is to review the Sale of Liquor Act, and it has to happen urgently. I myself have been involved in some applications around that, and Parliament had some clear intentions about not extending it to the superettes, but it happened because of the way that the legislation was drafted and its interpretation. It really does need tidying up because Parliament never intended the proliferation that we've seen. I should say.
Sure. To what extent, Garth, do you think any legislative change can change a nation's culture? When it comes to New Zealand, arguably bingeful, this drink to get drunk culture, which seems so endemic here.
I think it's a slow process, but unless you make change, one thing is certain: unless the change is made, there isn't going to be a change in culture. It's the only chance that I think we have. It's a slippery slope. We're on it, and it's a chance, as you've said in your opening, to get off it. How successful it'll be, who knows? But it's worth a go, isn't it?
Yeah, all right. Now, before we go to the break, we'll have a look at the so-called body snatching case. It's been back in the news with Justice Fogarty ruling that a Christchurch widow has the right to determine where her husband should be buried. But the High Court judgment stops short of ordering the disinterment of the body from the North Island marae. Do you think Justice Fogarty should have gone further?
He's been, I mean, there's still a potential for him to go further. He has been politic, I think, in trying to see if some resolution can be made between these parties. I don't probably share his optimism, given the history of this thing. I think the Tūhoe behaved disgracefully and in an undignified way. And, you know, one of their arguments in court was that because the body had been disposed by being buried in the way, then the executor had no further rights over it, so you could get the body in any which way that you chose to bury it, and then argue that the executors had no rights to bury it properly. So it's a very sad case, and I think His Honour has tried in his inimitable way to bring some sort of dignity to it.
How do you see it, Kathryn?
I just totally agree with Garth. That's exactly my view. The body should be left alone. I'm reluctant to, and I can understand why His Honour's reluctant to have the body uplifted again. It really should be left alone, but at the same time I don't agree with the way Tūhoe behaved in the first place. Can they just rest in peace?
And without wanting to diss the police, if they had actually got off their chuff a bit quicker, this could have all been avoided, arguably, with that court injunction coming out, and then the police took too long to get there.
Well, they got there in time, didn't they? But then didn't act, as I understand it.
Okay.
So they arrived, but then chose not to enforce it.
Yes.
Civil matter is the common thing used.
True. Yeah, David?
I would agree with what my learned colleagues have said. I might, though, be a little harsher on His Honour. Garth described him as politic. I almost might describe him as political. I can't help but detect a certain feebleness here, a desire to please everyone. Why would Mr Justice Fogarty think that without an order, Tūhoe will be reasonable? It would have been better if he wants everyone to be happy and hugging each other. It would have been better to have made the order, which, after all, the widow was entitled to and which she had asked for, and then negotiate from that position.
And did Mr Justice have the scope to go that far if he wished?
I believe so. That was what she was asking for, wasn't that right?
Yes, he did. Oh, no, he certainly did. But, I disagree, David, in a way. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I think His Honour has tried to see if there's one way, just a final chance of them resolving this thing. Now, it may be hoping against hope, but it's certainly
dreaming.
Critical of them.
It's dreaming. I'm afraid it's a feebleness we see in the judiciary on various occasions.
All right. On that note, we'll take a break coming up. It's been a wild week for Paula Bennett. We'll have a look at that next. Do stay with us.